Good evening. Good evening. Well, this is the third year in the John M. O'Quinn Law Building, and each year we've tried to attempt to celebrate some of our pioneering law school graduates. And this year we're focusing on the judiciary. But before, I have to do some bragging rights about the Law Center. So the Law Center has the highest credentials in the first year class in the school's history, with a median LSAT of 163 and a median GPA of almost 3.8. Students are from all over the country and all over the world. Many of them are first generation, about 25% are first generation college students, about 80% are first generation law school students. Our placement rate after graduation is at 94%. Our faculty are amazing. We have 4 programs in the top 15, our intellectual property program, health law program, part-time program, and the legal writing program. So it's an excellent school filled with students who really want to succeed and do really well, and we provide opportunities for our city, our state, and our nation. But our pioneers are people who started many years ago and also were afforded incredible opportunities at the law school and have done very, very well in their careers. And that's why we're here to celebrate them, because they are people who started before any of their students now, and they're role models, they're trailblazers, they're amazing people who overcame many odds and were incredibly successful, and we're very proud of them. And so we wanted to do it on judiciary this year because, one of my goals is to have more members of our community, more UH Law alumni, to be judges and law clerks. And so it's important to focus on that. Being a judge is such an important job in our society, more important now than maybe ever. And so we really, really appreciate that. And just give you some information, which I've learned as I was doing this, mostly through the work of Christina Van Arsdale and Professor Mixon and Judge Davidson, that we've had, even in the classes that graduated in the 1950s, we had 9 UH Law graduates who were judges from the 1950s. The school only started in 1947. In fact, some of our early graduates were judges. It's really quite amazing in terms of the accomplishments of our graduates. And in fact, what we found, and this could be subject to verification, so if anyone knows anything that we don't know, this is all we have at the moment, is that we found that Wendell Odom was class of 1951. 1951. The school started in 1947, class of 1951. He served as judge of the County Court at Law, number 2, from 1957 to 1961. Court of Domestic Relations from 1961 to 1964, 176th District Court from 1964 to 1971, and Governor Preston Smith appointed him Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the highest court for criminal law in our state. And he served there from 1971 to 1984. That's quite an accomplishment for our law school and also for Judge Odom. But one of the things, and we've also had many judges serve with distinction on the Texas Supreme Court, in which we have one of them here now, and they have included, of course, Justice Gonzalez, but Justice Sonduck was the first woman to serve on the Texas Supreme Court. She was one of our pioneers last year, and she unfortunately can't be here today because of she's feeling a little bit under the weather, and also Justice Wallace, who was also one of our UH Law alums who was on the Texas Supreme Court. And then the Federal District Court, we're blessed, obviously, with Judge Gilmore here, but we currently have Gray Miller, who's a senior judge, John Kazin, Jeff Brown, and we also had Fortunato Pete Benavides, who was our only graduate on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So it's quite an accomplishment for so many of our alums to do what we're, achieving these goals, but we want more. So we're trying to encourage all of our students who are here, all of our lawyers in the audience to be here. There's maybe 200 people online, is my understanding. So there's a virtual and in-person event. We want more and more judges, because at the moment we don't have any UH Law alum on the Texas Supreme Court. even though we have this illustrious history of justices on the Texas Supreme Court, there are currently 0 justices on the Texas Supreme Court. So I'm really honored to be the moderator and host of this event, to introduce this illustrious, incredible group of judges and jurists. And so what I'd first like to do is have them introduce themselves briefly, introduce themselves. So Justice Gonzalez, why don't we start with you?
My name is Raul Gonzalez. I'm happy to be here, Dean, and applaud the work that you're doing at the law school. Graduated from UH Law School in 1966. Originally from the Valley, Weslaco, Texas. Both of my parents were born in Mexico. I was born on this side, and I never dreamed that would come from stoop labor as a migrant worker to the Texas Supreme Court. But I'm here because the law school gave me an opportunity and a hand up. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Justice Gonzalez. And Judge Vasquez?
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I am Juan Vasquez, and I was telling Justice Gonzalez, or one of the other judges here earlier, that 50 years ago, in September 1975, I transferred here in the SUNY at Buffalo, my first year at SUNY at Buffalo, and I transferred here in September 1977. 50 years ago, 1975. So a year later, after I did my second year in law school here, with my third year in law school, and in the beginning of our third year of law school, in August of 1976, our son Juan Vasquez Jr. was born here in Houston, and so he's a graduate of UH Law School, 2001, and all that first row there, they're all Vasquez's.
The Vasquez family is in the house. And Juan Jr. is a partner at Nelson Mullins, and they're tax, right? So why don't you talk, you're on the...
I'm a judge on the United States Tax Court. I was appointed for 15 years by President Clinton, and then I was renominated and then for another 15 years by President Obama. And now I'm a senior judge on the court, and I've been on the court 30 years. We conduct trials in 74 cities across America, including Anchorage, Alaska, Hawaii. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much.
And you and Juan Jr. do a tax class together, right?
Yes, for 15 years we've had a tax course, tax litigation and tax controversy. The mock trial in front of me, and the students have lots of fun. It's really aggressive.
Many students who want to have experience with really 2 phenomenal UH law graduates, please take the Vasquez class. Judge Gilmore.
Well, I guess I missed out on all the fun by not doing tax, huh? I'm Vanessa Gilmore, and I am a 1981 graduate of the University of Houston Law Center. I started in 1979. I practiced law here in Houston for many years and was nominated to the federal bench by President Clinton in 1993. Went on the federal bench in 1994 as the United States District Judge here in the Southern District of Texas in Houston. And I was the first University of Houston graduate to be appointed to the federal bench, and they gave me a really big party, Dean. Right here.
So I should know.
Right here on campus. And I served almost 28 years. I retired from the district bench in 2022, and back into the fray, practicing law, mediating, arbitrating, doing all kinds of fun stuff. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Judge Gilmore. Justice Kais.
Hi. Wonderful for that to get. But I actually from college in 1965, and there were not a whole lot of options for girls at that time. A few went to law school. Almost none of those made it through law school because they got what they went there for, which was the husband they hadn't already gotten like everybody else. But if you didn't do that, you could be a school teacher or a secretary or a nurse. And if you think law firms hired the women, the few women who got through, you are dead wrong. They absolutely did not. And so I had a fellowship that I decided to use at the University of Texas in English and ended up getting a PhD, but also the husband that I went there for, who was at Vincent Elkins, which meant that we've been at Vincent Elkins ever since until he aged out and is now at a, he now teaches, now is of counsel at an offshoot of Vincent Elkins, which is Kelly Hart in Austin. And he also is taught out here too, business and finance law. And so we became a legal family, but I'm sitting there doing things like stuffing confetti eggs and listening to women talk about their grapefruit diets. And I thought, really doesn't cut it. So I'll do something practical. I'm going to get a PhD. I'm going to go back and study philosophy. So I went back to study philosophy at Rice, which is the only game in town. And that was a lot of fun. But one day I was listening to a professor from All Souls, Oxford, talk about reasons and persons. And I thought, you do not believe what you're saying. And I don't believe what you're saying. You'll be doing this in 20 years. I'm out of here. I'm going to law school where you can do something practical. Correct. I went to this law school and had absolutely fabulous teachers. I never felt there were better law school teachers that I ran into in my career, which ended up being complex. I did get that PhD because it was too late to take the LSAT when I heard that talk in March. But I went to the firm that became Clements O'Neill Pearson Nickens, which was a very sophisticated, complex civil litigation boutique that would actually hire a woman kind of long in the tooth. And it was a fantastic experience, but I really wanted to go on the bench. And my partner, because I made partner there, was Jane Clements, was a fabulous litigator, but was killed in a car wreck coming back from a conference we both attended in Austin. And I flew back for the Vincent Elkins prom, and that was it. I said, I want to go on the bench. I didn't know how to go on the bench. So the firm helped me get a job as, I didn't want to be a partner in a law firm pulling those litigation knives out of my back all the time. So I, although it was excellent intellectual work, I wanted to do law instead of that stuff. So they helped me get a job as Special Assistant Attorney General with John Cornyn, and my good friend Harriet O'Neill, then on the Supreme Court, when we were having lunch one day, I said, Harriet, how do you, this is in Austin, how do you go on the bench in Texas? And she said, you see that office over there? That's called the Governor's Appointments Office. It doesn't mean you have an appointment at 2 o'clock. It means you go over there and you fill out a form and you apply to go on the bench. Huh? So I did all that stuff and was appointed to the First Court of Appeals by Rick Perry, and then reelected periodically until, which was fun, going out there and campaigning and being able to tell people what judges do all day, because most of them think that appellate judges do trials, which they don't. So it is really, it was a lot of fun. And so I did that until I aged out. And they do kick you off the state bench if you turn 75 in the first 4 years of your 6-year term. And I did. So at the end of those 4 years in 2020, I retired from the bench, and I'd already started teaching at Rice University in philosophy of law, and they asked me to teach constitutional law, and I was in the politics, law, and social thought program, and had helped co-found the judicial internship for undergraduates, which I still believe is incredibly valuable. So I did that, and now I'm retired from that finally, which is bizarre, but I have a couple of projects that I put in here, and one of them has to do with helping, I'm on the task force, but not an important player, of the of Texas Specialty Business Courts, but also on the Collaborative Council of the Judicial Commission on Mental Health. And the big project that they are undertaking, which could take a number of years and can go in different directions, but the idea is to make those mental health courts, specialty courts, not elected courts. We just take your chances, but require special requirements, appoint the judges, and then have special training. And I think it will really help get mental health care in the civil and criminal system and the step-down system, and all the great things that are being done, united and somewhat systematized, and hopefully help everybody. I've not met a person who's against it, so I think it's worth doing. Sorry it takes so long, I just had to.
It's a
Captive audience, what are you gonna do?
Judge Kovacs.
Kovacs, and I was elected to be judge in 2018. I graduated from the University of Houston Law School in 1991. In 2018, I always said I was never going to be a judge. It was not on the radar for me. I just wasn't something that I was interested in earlier on in my career, my 30 plus years as a litigator. And I was a commercial litigator. I represented Southwestern Bell Yellow Pages was my big client. And I did a collection docket. And the whole time I was in the county civil courts. The county civil courts have concurrent jurisdiction with the district courts, except we have a jurisdictional cap that's gone up over the years. It was 50,000, then it went to 100,000. It was just 250,000 and went up to 325,000 currently. And so we do a lot of collection work, credit card debt, a lot of automobile accidents. We also handle all the appeals out of Justice of the Peace Court, which is where every eviction case starts. And so as I was sitting in court over the years, I just realized I didn't really like some of the temperament I saw of the judges, how they were treating people, especially people facing eviction for non-payment of rent. And so I came home one day and told my husband, I think I'm going to switch and become a realtor. I had a nice office building on Memorial in Westcott. And he said, no, you're not. You're going to go in there and change it. You're going to go in there and run and be a fair judge and have the right temperament for people that appear before you. We're kind of like a little bit of a people's court. And so in 2018, I ran for election, was reelected in 22. And then again, we're seeing what happened in 26.
And Justice Berlioz.
Hi, I'm really honored to be here. I graduated in 2007. I originally came to law school because I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. And so when I graduated, I had a 2-year fellowship, a post-grad fellowship, and I worked on death penalty cases with David Dow in the clinic here. And I'm super humbled right now because all of my first cases were in Judge Gilmore's court. So this is a very cool full circle moment for me. And then after a couple years of doing that, I went to the Harris County Public Defender's Office when they opened, and I got hired as appellate, but it was very fluid over there. So I did mitigation for felony trial. I did a lot of the mental health cases. I helped with juvenile certifications. And I actually also never wanted to be a judge, but a very dear friend and a colleague of mine at the time said, hey, there's an open seat nobody's running for the seat on the 14th Court of Appeals. Would you be interested in running? And I was like, absolutely not. I'm busy. I was a single mom. My son at the time was about 9, but I talked to him too, and I decided to go ahead and run for office. And then I spent 6 wonderful years on the 14th Court of Appeals. I was elected in 2018. And so I finished my term at the end of 2024. And I am now doing federal litigation at a really wonderful immigration firm. Still out there, still in the fight. It's pretty exciting to get back to the litigation side after appellate. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask a question that we hadn't really discussed, but what came up, I think, is how you became a judge. That's something we really, the last 3 of you on the panel have talked about that, and it seems like you're just put your hat in the ring. So I'd be curious for the other panelists, and for you also, like how did you not how did you determine to be a judge, but what was the process like? Because I think, when I have been working with some alums about becoming a federal judge. I've worked with a few of them and try to help them and guide them to the extent I can by writing recommendation letters and that sort of thing. And I think what I find is that many people think, oh, somebody points you out and says you're selected, but that is not the way it happens. So I'd be curious, when we start with you, Justice Gonzalez.
I was looking for something to do because I was very dissatisfied with the practice of law, with the Rambo lawyers and unethical practice, the ambulance chasers, and I was very dissatisfied. And about that time, I had a part of my life that had been dormant was my spiritual side. My faith was dormant. My wife convinced me we'd go on a retreat for couples. I didn't want to go, but the Lord had other plans. I got hit by a 2x4 and awakened in me not only the romance and the fun in our relationship, but it awakened in me an opportunity to question, who is God? Who is God in my life? I was very skeptical of all that, so I started the process of Bible study. And through prayer, for me, I decided that I would give it a try and be a judge. And if I had an opportunity to shape the law practice in a more, get back to basics in terms of ethics, I wanted to do that. So that's how I became a district judge, a judge of general jurisdiction, handling civil cases, criminal cases, and family law matters and juvenile delinquency, the variety of law. That was very satisfying. So that's how I became a district judge for 2 counties, Cameron County and Willacy County in the Rio Grande Valley.
Just to raise your hand like your peers had said, is like, I'm just going to run, or how did that happen? Besides your spiritual, the spiritual.
Yeah, right. Nobody offered.
That's important, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, nobody tells you, here's a judgeship. You got to work for it. What I did, and I'm sure my colleagues did as well, when you are going to run for an election for the first time, you need a host of individuals who believe in you, who know you, that can vouch for you, raise money for you, and talk to voters. I mean, and you meet some of the nicest people and some of the worst people during the campaign. So that's my experience.
Now, the next 2 are appointed, right? So Judge Vasquez and Judge Gilmore. So how's that process on the federal level?
Well, in the tax court, it is the United States Tax Court. We're in Article 1. We get appointed, we be nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. We go before the Senate Finance Committee, and then we go before the full Senate. And in our situation, I had been in private practice for 13 years in San Antonio. After graduating from U of H Law School, and I met my mentor and professor, Ira Shepard, the tax professor here. I met him here in '75, and he made me his research assistant for the Federal Tax Institute, Southern Federal Tax Institute. And, but so we were, my wife and I, Terry, we were in Malibu, California, attending a tax conference, and we've been married 55 years. And, not at that time, but now we have. But we were sitting at the beach in Malibu, California there, trying to figure out, we had accomplished much in my small practice. Well, I was a solo practitioner the last 2 years. We wanted to do something different. I wanted to serve our country in a certain way, and I didn't know how. And so by that time, people had mentioned, there's a vacancy on the United States Tax Court, and maybe you should look into it. But I had no idea. How do you become a judge on the United States Tax Court? How do you get the attention of the President of the United States? Mm-hmm. And so there was a conference coming up from the American Bar Association tax section in January. And actually, this was Martin Luther King weekend when we were in Malibu. And so we were I said, well, there's a conference of the tax section in Houston at the Galleria. And so let's go there. So I went there when the appointments committee of the tax court was meeting. And I thought I would walk into this room and find applications, like an application. I walked into this conference room. They're getting set up they're getting ready for the panel for the, and I see a bunch of tax lawyers that I recognize, but they all have gray hair. They're very mature and have a lot of experience. And I say, but I don't see any applications on the tables. So I just walk out, and I walk up at the gallery. I walk up to the Weston Oaks. I walk up and I meet my mentor and professor from U of H, Ira Shepard. And I asked Ira, Professor Shepard, how does one get an appointment to the United States Tax Court? And he says, oh, I know how President Bush worked, the older Bush, because I was familiar with his administration, but I don't know how President Clinton does it. So let me look into it. But he assured us, it was a letter. He said, let me meet with you and Terry. I'll meet with you on Saturday. And we did. And Ira Shepard, Professor Shepard, let us, he said, it's a letter writing program. And he's going to make Terry, him in charge of my letter writing program. And he did. So we wrote all these letters of support. Asking I had about 1,500 clients. And we wrote all of those clients and anybody that could support us, politicians, telling them to support my nomination. And they did. And it got us an interview with the Senate Finance Committee, or the president, in this particular president, had a committee of 5. We call it the Committee of 5. The Commissioner of the Internal Revenue, the Chief Counsel of the IRS, the Assistant Attorney General of the Tax Division, the President was in charge of the Tax Policy Committee, and on and on. So everybody wrote letters to them, and got myself interviewed by that Committee of 5, and then came back and got another interview with Senator Lloyd Benson. From Texas. He was Secretary of the Treasury. And he said, now, why do you want to leave Texas and be a tax judge? I said, Senator, if I can call you Senator, because he was Secretary of the Treasury, you can call me Senator. And I said, okay. And so I tried, for 4 years I was a government lawyer, tried cases in the tax court for 4 years. For 13 years, I tried cases for on the private sector. Now I want to be in the middle. He says, okay. Anyway, so I got nominated by the President Clinton, and got confirmed by the Senate, and I was introduced by Bailey Hutchinson, Senator Bailey Hutchinson, to the committee, and a congressman from San Antonio, Cecil Rodriguez, and then I got renominated by President Obama. In the second term, I got introduced to the Senate Finance Committee by Senator John Cornyn. So, and the rest is history. So it's 30 years, I'm still on the court. And by the way, I was going to say, at Judge's Baby School, I met Vanessa Gilmore, Judge Vanessa Gilmore.
Right.
And we were having dinner, we had the baby judges school. We had a third person from U of H. There must have been about 50 new judges. And so I met Judge Gilmore and
We've been friends ever since, right?
yes. The other U of H graduate was William
Phil Downing.
down from the District Court of Wyoming.
Yes, yes,
Anyway,
absolutely.
so we have a lot to be proud as U of H graduates. And thank you. Thank you, Dean.
That's great. Judge Gilmore.
Well, for me, so Article 3 judges, and I'm a judge appointed under Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States, we are appointed for life. So the confirmation process is very tedious because one of the things that they want to make sure is that you're not going to get black robe-itis. And one thing that I think is
Black robe-itis.
well, you know, get too full of yourself. And one of the things that all people, all of federal judges that I know, at least federal judges appointed as Article 3 judges have in common is that we all knew a senator. And how do you get to know a senator? It just means that you have to be, just like some of my colleagues have already mentioned, in the community and of the community, and people have to understand that you are for the community. If you are, you don't get to become a federal judge because you're the smartest lawyer in Houston, you're the smartest bulb on the tree, you know, the brightest bulb on the tree. It means that you have shown through the work that you've done in the community that you are interested in community service, that you're interested in being a public servant, and that people are willing to support you in that role. And for me, that went all the way back to a lot of the nonprofit work that I did in the city of Houston. I was president of the Y. I was very active in other nonprofit work. And as a result, Governor Ann Richards summoned me to Austin during her first term as governor and asked me if I would take a nomination to be appointed to the Texas Department of Commerce Board of Directors. Well, I was a trial lawyer, and I thought that, you know, trial lawyers and business people, that's sort of oil and water, and I didn't know what value I could add to the board of the Texas Department of Commerce. But she said that she had heard about how I had helped pull the Y out of a pickle at that point, and that she had heard I was not the kind of person who would hide my light under a bushel. And I had never heard that term. It's actually a term from the Sermon on the Mount. It means someone who doesn't hide their talent or abilities. And I thought, well, I guess I'm that girl. I'm not doing that. So she actually nominated me, and I was confirmed to serve on the board of the Texas Department of Commerce Policy Board. We did business development, tourism development, job training. I you know, traveled all over the state of Texas, all over the country, recruiting businesses to come to Texas, setting up job training programs, doing tourism development. We developed a lot of really interesting trade and tourism programs for the state. I worked on the NAFTA treaty. I went back and forth between the United States and Mexico, working on trade opportunities. I got to go and meet President Clinton when we signed the NAFTA treaty into law. And I did a lot of my traveling with a gentleman by the name of Bob Kruger, who was chair of the Railroad Commission at the time. And you know, the Railroad Commission, it's a sort of a misnomer. It's everything, oil and gas and trucking and transportation. And when President Clinton became president, and he took then Senator Lloyd Bentsen and made him Secretary of the Treasury, that left an opening in the Senate. And so the governor got to appoint the new senator, and she appointed Bob Kruger. Well, at the time she appointed Bob Kruger, there were 10 vacancies on the federal bench in the state of Texas, because I think George Bush thought that he was going to get a second term and having an opportunity to fill those 10 vacancies. He did not. So when the 10 vacancies came up, I knew that the senator is the one who makes the recommendation to the president of the persons to be nominated to the federal bench. So that was going to be Bob Kruger, a gentleman I'd spent the better part of 3 or 4 years traveling with and working with on trade and business development issues. So I went to the senator and said, hey, you know, I'd like to be on the committee to help pick the federal judges. There's 10 vacancies in Texas. He says, okay, you can do that. That's what you want to do? I said, yeah, I want to pick the federal judges. So I show up for the first committee meeting at Sussman and Godfrey Law Firm, where all of the people that Senator Kruger had chosen to help him figure out who he was going to recommend to the president of the United States. You don't actually have to know the president, but you got to know a senator who knows the president, right? And I get there, and the members of the committee said, oh, we're not going to have you. We're going to kick you off the committee. And I was a girl, so I started crying. And I said, did I offend somebody? What happened? And they said, no, we're going to nominate you. I was like, oh, no. I didn't want to be nominated. I was a trial lawyer. You know, I was doing very well for myself. I was the person in my family responsible for taking care of other people in my family. And I wasn't really interested in a job as a trial judge at that point in time in my life. I called my pastor, the Reverend Bill Lawson, and I said, Reverend Lawson, something terrible's happened. He said, what? I said, they want me to be a federal judge. He said, ask yourself 2 questions. Can you do a good job? Will it be good for the community? I said, I think I can do a good job. He said, I think it'll be good for the community for you to be there. Call me back when you have a real problem. Click. Hung the phone up on me. And then I called Ann Richards. And I said, you know, Governor, they want me to go on the federal bench. She goes, no, you're not doing that. It's a terrible idea. And she said, I got plans for you. I was like, what is it? And she said, I'm going to run you for the Railroad Commission with me. You're going to run on the ticket with me for the Railroad Commission to take Bob Kruger's seat on the Railroad Commission. I was like, oh, okay. Then I called my mother. Mom, the governor says I shouldn't do it. She says that she's going to run me for the Railroad Commission. And my mother said, I never heard you say you wanted to run for statewide office. She said, if I'd heard you say that even once, I would say do that. But you know, sometimes you hitch your wagon to somebody else's star and you're on the wrong wagon. She said, sometimes it's time, you know, you're that girl who got on the fast train and you just think that you're just supposed to take it to the end. She said, sometimes it's time to pull the bell and get off. And she said, I think it's time for you to pull the bell and get off. So I pulled the bell and I got off. And wasn't a bad stop either. And the governor went on to run against George Herbert Walker Bush. And in that election, I think we all know what happened in that one. She did not win. I would have been on that ticket with her. She went on to do some other things in New York. And so I went on to be nominated by Senator Kruger to the federal bench. Now, the federal confirmation process, it took me about 13 months to get through the confirmation process. It is a very, very onerous examination of your entire background. And you know the thing that almost derailed me, I don't know if I ever told you this, Dean, the FBI called me and said they had my FBI report and there was a problem. And the problem was that in 1981, I had a traffic ticket from the University of Houston for an expired parking meter that had not been paid. And I told them that I was sure that ticket blew off my windshield. And they said that they couldn't give me a clear report until I went to the bursar's office here and paid the ticket from 1981. And so I called, I went over there and I said, I've got this traffic ticket, a expired parking meter I need to pay. And they said, what's the license plate number of your car? I don't even know. I don't even know what kind of car I had. And so they said, well, we have to match it with something. I said, can I just give you $20? They were like, no. So we went round and round. I had to find my old license plate. It was just such a mess. And I finally got the ticket paid, called the FBI back. I said, I paid the ticket. They said, fax us a copy of the receipt. I mean, these people have no sense of humor. And I faxed them a copy of the receipt. But then, you know, they did things like go to my next door neighbor's house and ask them to write down the license plates of any cars that spent the night at my house. I was a single woman. I was like, oh my God, I'm never getting another date. You know, my mother said, all those years of being a nerd have finally paid off. And so So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to hurry up and get through this process so I can start dating again. And so it took me 13 months to get through the process. And at my Senate confirmation hearing, which Article 3 judges have their hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson sat with me on one side of me, and Jack Brooks from East Texas sat on the other side of me. It was a different time then. It was very, very bipartisan. I had a very good relationship with Senator Hutchinson because she had been the treasurer of the state of Texas when I was chair of the Department of Commerce. So whenever I wanted to get tax relief for businesses that I was bringing to the state, I would have to get permission from then treasurer Kay Bailey Hutchinson. So we had a long relationship that went back to that. I was very involved with Senator Benson and helping with some of his campaign things. There's so many touch points that you have that end up having an impact on whether or not you make it through the confirmation process. But it's not like one of those things you can sort of plan for. You can't plan for having had this long relationship with Kay Bailey Hutchinson. You can't plan for having had this long relationship with Senator Benson. It just has to be that you have to be a person in the community and of the community, and those things come together for you at the end.
Those are great. I mean, from all of our panelists, this is really important information, especially for our students and for any of our members of the audience who are lawyers. I mean, the thing is that you can do your work in your office and do a really great job, but if no one's seeing you or noticing you or you're not participating in a larger community, well, then it's good, but it's not going to get you these opportunities that you might get.
And can I say one more thing?
One last thing.
There are 50 vacancies on the federal court in the United States right now, and there are only 15 nominations. And in Texas, there are 9 vacancies right now. 5 here in Houston, 2 in South Texas, 2 in the Northern District of Texas, and all of the vacancies in Texas are considered judicial emergencies, where they really, really, really need to have those vacancies filled. So
UH graduates, hear this. There's opportunities out there for you.
Opportunities.
Absolutely. So let's get back to let's start on the other end this time. And so the question is, this is pioneers and path breakers. So do you consider yourself a path breaker or a pioneer, Judge Sperlio?
So when I ran for office, when I ran for the 14th, it was because we didn't have anybody on that court that had come from a public defender or a criminal defense background. So in that sense, I did, when I was running, feel a little bit like we were breaking a barrier. And then after I got elected, I got a phone call one day. Actually, I got a message one day from Chris Pryton, who was the clerk at the time. And he said, this woman has called from the Supreme Court Historical Society, and she wants to talk to you because she says you're the first Asian American woman to make it to an intermediate appellate court in Texas. And I thought, this must be a joke. Like, this must be a prank call, right? Because we cover 10 counties that include Harris and Fort Bend County. But then also think of, Dallas, all of these cities in Texas, like statewide, 254 counties. So I actually didn't call her back. And then she called back again a couple of days later, and I said, well, maybe this is real. And so I called her back, and she confirmed. She said, no, you are the very first Asian American woman who has been elected to an intermediate appellate court in Texas. And that completely blew my mind. And then, honestly, I don't know that I really understood at the time the impact it had, but I remember going, to visit students, or I did Teach Texas through the Houston Bar Association, which is a really wonderful way to get out there and you're teaching in a 7th grade Texas history class. And I had a lot of young girls particularly, and they said, judges don't look like us. And I said, well, I do. So in that sense, it was a very kind of surreal, very humbling experience to realize that to these little girls, it was a barrier-breaking moment. So in that sense, I don't take the term pioneer lightly. It still kind of blows my mind that I was the first, but it's a huge honor.
Great, thank you. Judge Kovac.
So I feel a little bit like imposter syndrome up here with everybody that has. So I do feel like I am a pioneer in a way, and that is that the county civil courts at law haven't had an openly gay judge. I was aware of, obviously, and in 2016, when my husband and I decided to get married, legally married, we've been together since 1999. So quite a long time. We decided to take the time to go to Texas. I practice almost every day. And that was something that was offensive to me, that in the very court where I'm seeking justice every day for my clients and watching all the other litigants, that I can't do the one simple thing that my husband and I wanted to do to take the next step in our relationship. And so, but at the same time, I come from a very conservative family. I'm from Kingwood. My parents are very conservative, Catholic. My father was in the seminary when he met my mother. And although they were accepting, they were very concerned about perception and the public view. And so, in fact, when I went and told my mother that I was considering running for office, my mother asked me not to. And she said, please don't. And I said, why, of course. And she said, look, we're getting older. And can't you just wait? Can't you just wait until we pass to take that step? And that really caught me, that my own mother would say that she didn't want to go through the election of what a potential election would be like. And I didn't know. I'd never run for office. So as much as I had been supportive in the community, and I was very big, like Judge Gilmore, I was very big in the nonprofit world. I had been on the board of Legacy Community Health Services, which was the Montrose Clinic, and did a lot of work for AIDS charities at the time. And so I had been very open and out and in my life, but my parents still were protecting me and didn't want to see me be hurt. And so they were the ones who were, ironically, the ones who were saying that maybe you should take a step back from running. And of course, I'm hard-headed and said, no, that's not going to it can't wait. What I was seeing couldn't wait. And I felt a change in the air in 2018. There was a change going on. And I felt like the time was right. And I'm the first Democrat that won a seat on that bench in 30 years or more. It had been quite a long time since it had changed. And I felt like there was a time for a change. And so after meeting with friends and colleagues, I decided to go for it, and it proved successful.
Thank you. Justice Kais, I guess you've talked a little bit about being, Justice Kais, about being the first woman or one of the few women. Do you consider yourself a path breaker?
Do I consider myself
A path breaker, a pioneer?
a pioneer?
Yeah, in the legal profession, yeah.
You guys can figure that out. I mean, I told you what I've done. No, I don't think of myself as a pioneer. But I do think it's important to get out there and do what you can do, and that no matter who you are. And I do believe that things like the bench are a calling. And so if you feel like, or even law, I should be doing law instead of literature, because literature, which I love and which I very much champion right this minute, it doesn't seem practical. And but you weren't directly affecting people's lives. I now realize you're greatly affecting people's lives, because you're teaching them, if you actually teach, you're teaching them the insights that they're going to need, not only for, and not only in their personal lives to be richer people, but you need insights, critical thinking, logical thinking, evaluative thinking, and all the things that the humanities teach you if you want to be a lawyer. Learn how to make a reasoned argument for both sides, which I am sure everyone in this room thinks is a fascinating thing to do. And it is, and it makes a difference for people. And it was fun representing clients. And it is fun trying to keep the law sound. And I would always tell all of my my clerks and staff and then my students, that it's so important not to screw over the law and not to screw over your clients. You want to do justice to people under law. These things really matter. A law that's, a society that's grounded in good, sound laws. And it's very satisfying. So whatever I can do to instigate people in the right direction, I'll leave you with one quick thought. If you think people can control AI by learning more data, you are not right. So you might want to practice some of these skills and learn some of this substance, because that will give you control of the future for human beings instead of machines. And I think a lot of you have shared that, have had that insight and realized we better get with the program and not just allow ourselves to be led. We got to do it.
Thank you. Judge Gilmore,
Well, I
you a
would
path
I would say that
are you a path breaker?
I think I am in some ways. I think that Reverend Lawson was right, that it was good for the community for me to be in the position as the United States District Judge. I think that I have the kind of personality that doesn't lend itself to being squirreled away in the federal courthouse with nobody ever having an opportunity to have access to me. And so I take advantage of every opportunity that I can to speak, to be in the community, to let people see me and hear from me. And it was one of the things that prompted me to start having tea in my chambers every week. No one ever comes to visit federal judges. Everybody goes to visit state judges, and state judges want people to come visit them. But no one comes to visit federal judges. And so I started having tea in my chambers every single Thursday for almost the entire time that I was on the bench, except for the last 2 years, just so that people would have the opportunity to come into the courts, understand what we were doing there. I had Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, people's mamas in town that never had met a judge before, lawyers who didn't have cases currently before me. And so I think it's a real opportunity for you to give access to the courts. And I think that I really worked hard to do that and to make the federal courts more accessible and understandable to people. And then at the end of my time was, you know, we didn't get to do it because it was COVID the last 2 years I was on the bench, and everybody's like, oh man, no more tea with Judge V. And I thought, there's an idea. So that's why I opened my tea room, Tea with Judge V. Come see me.
Well, you also wrote children's books.
So wrote some books. I wrote a children's book about children of the incarcerated. One of the things that one of my friends asked me was, how many people that we sentenced to prison had children? I was like, I don't know, everybody, just about. And so a friend of mine who's a child psychologist and I decided to write a book specifically to help children of the incarcerated. And it's a book that is designed to help families stay connected during the period of incarceration. It sort of serves a twofold purpose. One, it helps people that are in prison keep that connection, and it cuts down on recidivism later on because they have a family that they've stayed connected to that they can go back to. And it also is helpful for children who often suffer from depression and anxiety related to losing a parent to incarceration. And so we ended up starting a whole program at the courts called the U.S. Pretrial Legal Clinic. We did it in conjunction with Thurgood Marshall Law School, as a matter of fact, where we created a clinic so that people who were either indicted but not yet convicted, or convicted but not yet sentenced, would have an opportunity to kind of get their affairs in order for their family members. They worked on housing issues, they worked on driver's license issues and guardianship issues, and just kind of everyday things that you needed to get done to make sure that your family didn't get left with, you know, out in the lurch without anything. And it turned out to be a very, very successful clinic. It turned out to be a very successful book. We sold literally thousands and thousands of them to prisons, to churches, to prison ministries all over the country, to Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and all kinds of places that work to help treat children and help children deal with the very real impact of the loss, because 75% of children who lose a parent to incarceration end up incarcerated themselves unless they can find a different path. And that was one of the purposes of the program, was to sort of create a different path and to create a different sort of vision of what their life might actually end up being able to be like.
You know, Judge, who's an adopted mother, single adopted mother?
I think I am. In fact, it's been kind of weird being a single adoptive mother as a judge. First of all, I'll say this: if you're thinking about becoming a single adopted mother, being a judge is a great job, because you can just decide there's not going to be any court today, and so you get to go on all the field trips and all the things that your kids want you to go on. But I've had a couple of occasions where people that were newly appointed to the federal bench and were considering becoming adoptive parents on their own called me and said, "Will you be my mentor, Judge? I'm thinking about doing this." I was like, "Don't do it. It's a lot of work." But it's very rewarding, and it's been great for me. My son just took the LSAT. I hope he gets into law school someplace. It's been very, very rewarding for me.
And Judge Vasquez, you have a book that I think Terry wrote, right? What is the name of the book, Terry?
Yeah.
Judge Gonzalez, the name of the book
What's
is
the-
From the Texas Cotton Fields to the United States Tax Court. I was a cotton picker for six years or 6 summers. My family had been cotton in Taft, Texas, Portland, Texas, Sinton, for many, many years. And
I want to steal your title and write a book myself.
Yeah.
but yet my wife wrote the book with co-author with Anthony Head, and it's a very good cotton picking book. Chapter 3 is
The press is ABA? Is it ABA publication? Yes. So are you a path breaker? Are you a trailblazer? Are you a pioneer? You have a book written after you.
You know, when I was in law school, I'm glad I would have never thought of myself as a breaker or a role model. I was just trying to survive. So, and I did the very best I could. And when I was in private practice, after I left, I was just trying to get a job, break into the tax field. Because one of the things I needed to prove early on is, well, when I transferred to the University of Texas, Houston Law School here, my friend Eddie Saenz was a member of the Mexican American Bar Association, or Student Association, Hispanic. He said, why don't you join us at the University of Houston Law School? We were home from Buffalo for the Christmas holidays, and I saw my buddy Eddie Saenz, and he says, "Why don't you join us? You'll be the 11th Hispanic at University of Houston Law School."
Wow.
And so, 11th at the he was in the beginning class, first year, so there were 10 Hispanics. That would be 11th. So, so I'm on the committee, and he might recommend, or he would recommend me. But the process was very interesting, because once I transferred to University of Houston, we were the Hispanic group, the Mexican American Law Student Association, was very small. But like I said, there's only 11 of us. And I had to convince my classmates, the Hispanics, that we Hispanic could go into other areas besides the traditional 3 areas. The traditional three areas are personal injury, criminal law, and family law. We can also go into tax law. We can go into real estate. We can go into employment law. We can go into, litigation. So, but I stayed with the organization, and I was able to convince them that I was Juan Vasquez. I was here to stay with them, and I would be with them. And so it was very interesting. But when I was in private practice in San Antonio, I had to do the same thing. I had to convince clients, Hispanic and Caucasian, that tax lawyers can be Hispanics. Give us a chance, give us an opportunity. So in a sense, I feel like an ambassador for my Hispanic culture to persuade them to people that we can do the work also. Just give us a break, give us an opening, so. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So, Ms. Gonzalez, you have a school named after you in Weslaco, among other things. So are you a path breaker?
Well, it is one of those things that you don't set out and think about. But the fact that there's a elementary school in my hometown named after me gives me an opportunity to go 2 or 3 times a year and speak to the students and to their parents and be of encouragement. My message is very simple. We are so blessed to live in this country that gives us the opportunity. If you play by the rules, work hard, keep your nose clean, a whole world is open to you. And you too can be on the court or in the legislature or in the Senate or a tax lawyer, besides the traditional roles for being, day laborers or being cotton pickers. So in a sense, it gives me that opportunity and to encourage others and do what I can to give them a hand up rather than tell them, no, you can't do it. In other ways as well, I don't like our system of electing judges in Texas. You have to raise money. And the last race that I had was over $1 million.
Not just from you or both candidates or all the candidates?
All the candidates, whoever wants to mount a race and get your name out and campaign in 254 counties is very expensive. The reason I don't like it is because none of us here make decisions based on what political party we happen to vote for. I consider myself an independent. So the fact that I became the first Hispanic in the history of Texas to be on the Texas Supreme Court is something that I'm very proud of, but it bears a tremendous amount of responsibility. Getting back to the topic that has been broached about how did you become a judge, Governor Bill Clemens, a Republican, appointed me to the Court of Appeals in Corpus Christi. I had never met the governor. He didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who he was, and I didn't vote for him. 3 years later, Governor Mark White, a Democrat, appointed me to the Supreme Court. I did not know Mark White, did not have a relationship with Mark White. I had the gift of being a director of Rotary Club and being on the board, a school board in South Texas, and being a mentor in the Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So I knew a lot of people who knew somebody that could put in a good word for me. And when I was approached with the idea of being available and accepting an appointment, if in fact everything lined up and you would be appointed, it was a struggle for me because I did not like the system. We had just remodeled our house. Our kids were in a good school. That means if I got appointed, you had to campaign, often be out of the house, not attend the kids' games and the Tix concerts and the piano recitals, sports events, etc. I don't like that aspect of it, and there is no way to remove the appearance of impropriety. So that's the reason I was very reluctant to say, if I'm appointed, I will accept it, and I will do. My colleagues on the court were very, very wise. They said, I told them, I don't want to go to law firms and ask for money, because there's no way to remove the appearance of impropriety that happened to be in my court. And they said, well, let me explain something to you. You can't be a good judge if you're not a judge. And that's the system we have, so get over it. So that's not only did I become the first Hispanic in the history of Texas to be on the Supreme Court, but I also broke some barriers that I became the first Hispanic in Texas to win a statewide race. So in a sense, the facts show that I'm a pioneer, but it's something that you do the best you can and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, thank you for for all of you for your service to our state and our nation, that's for sure. Let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, let's do one last question and then we open it up to the audience for questions. So what lessons have you learned that you'd like to convey to the next generation of lawyers and judges and students?
When I became a baby judge, I was not very good at it, looking back, because I thought I knew everything. Like when you're a freshman in high school, you think that what are you going to tell me? I'm a freshman in high school, I know everything. Well, the world is not black and white. There's no one size fits all. I should have been dealing with the individual before me in that particular case. But my advice to a new judge or a baby judge would be open to learning. We have the capacity to learn and to grow as long as we take a breath. So I would be today a better judge at the trial level, viewing the litigant before me differently than I would when I was a baby judge.
Judge Vasquez.
Yes. As a cotton picker, I learned a lot of lessons from my grandfather. In the book that Terry has there, it's an original painting of me and my grandfather picking cotton. I'm 9 years old, 9.5. My grandfather's in his 60s.
It's beautiful.
But he had a lot of dichos, a lot of sayings. He would say, "Sume la bota." My three granddaughters are here. Three of my granddaughters: Claire Amelia, Marian Graciela, and Lauren Olivia Vasquez. Oh, and Juan Vasquez, Juan Vasquez the third. Okay. And what I've always told them is, "Sume la bota." What it means is step on the boot. But it means a lot more than that. It means give it all you got. Give it all you got. It's almost like the Nike commercial. Just do it. Somebody should borrow it. Okay. So and my grandfather would say, if you're going to be a cotton picker, you got to be the best. If you're going to be a mechanic, if you're going to be a sanitary worker, and just give it the best. Now, he never told me, if you're going to be a lawyer, be the best, but then the law student. But that's what he meant. So when I went to law school, and first I went to the community college, and then the University of Texas in accounting, University of Houston Law School, JD 77, NYU 78, the LLM. when things would get tough, and I remember this in Buffalo, it would be snowing, and I didn't realize snow comes this way. I thought everything snow comes this way. Okay, and I would look out the window, and I would remember what my grandfather had said, give it the best you got. But he also said, I can complete it. You got to meet your obligations to the person, to your family. So I've always used that determination and those skills in the practice of law. And when I get ready for trials as a trial judge, I try to learn the record better than the attorneys, which is hard to do because the attorneys should know their case better than you. But sometimes, so it's just remarkable, the work ethic. And Justice Gonzalez, I look forward to seeing your elementary school in West Lockwood, Texas. Congratulations.
And let me know when you're going to be there. I'll be there with you. Say, we got 2 cotton pickers here.
Visit the school together.
Yes.
Inspiration.
I will arrange it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Judge Gilmore.
Don't hide your light under a bushel. Wherever you are, use that platform to use your voice and to speak out about things that are meaningful to the community and that are helpful to the community from wherever you are. I had a great platform to be able to do that as a federal judge, and I acknowledge that was, quite a blessing. I have a great platform to do that from now as I'm practicing law again at Roberts-Markland. But I would also say my other word of advice is don't forget to put yourself on your to-do list. I became a parent at 45 because I woke up one day and said, seems like there's something I forgot to do. Oh my God, I forgot to have a baby. And so I adopted my son at 45, which is why I'm an old mom now, still paying for kids with my broke best friend. But don't forget to put yourself on your to-do list of as you're out here saving the world and helping everybody else and doing things for the community, which we all should be doing. It's important to take care of yourself as well. So.
Justice Guys.
I've pretty much said it, but I think I like very much what you said, Judge Gilmore. I look at, as I get older, really old, things that just surge to the fore are family, love of your family, the love of each other that goes from generation to generation and at the same level in the generation, and love of humanity, recognition of the humanity of other people, and let's not overlook the animals and the plants and just life itself, the furthering of life itself. But I think I agree with everyone on this panel. Use the skills that God has given you. And also definitely, you will have heard a lot of people on this panel say about their involvement with the community. What I discovered when I got on the family bench, it was a family bench, I didn't realize it, state law bench. I had wanted to be a federal judge because that has lots of prestige. But I got started too late, and it really was not possible. But the appellate state bench was possible. And so I like to think it's not just making the best of a bad deal. That was an incredible experience because that's where you see life as it is really lived. And you know that we do have an obligation to develop what's in us, to help our children and develop what's in them, to have our own human relationships with our friends and our family and our spouses. But also the broader community does need you. It is a community. And the health and happiness of the community is very important. And to do that, you have to develop people. You referred basically, I don't think you used our famous term of the cradle to prison pipeline, but it is so incredibly real and a lot is being done. And so everyone can find some avenue to do something that helps people. And it's, of course, very gratifying for you. So I'm kind of satisfied with where not just I've ended up, I really am. I'm pretty happy with that. But think of all these folks and where they've ended up. Looks like they've got it figured out pretty well, so listen.
So I think one of the things that really makes people successful is not being afraid of change and not being afraid that of taking a risk. Sometimes you have to take a risk and it may not work out, but you'll learn something along the way and you can take that with you to the next opportunity, and there's going to be. And so I think having an optimistic and attitude towards things. I know one of the things that I've had to work on as a judge is being patient. My docket is, I have a very high volume, we're a low dollar, high volume court, but everybody, no matter what, that case is the most important thing to them, and being patient with them and letting them be heard that day, that's their one opportunity in front of you. And so that's something that I work on every day, is to change and try to make myself better at being a judge, as Judge said. You know, I think when I first got on the bench, I might have been too quick to the draw on some things, and now I take more time to let it set in and reflect on it, and I see sometimes my decision changes overnight, and so I give myself the opportunity to have that time.
That's great.
Dean, he made me serve as a juror in his courtroom.
That's a true story. When I first got on the bench, Judge Gilmore ended up on a panel in front of me in my court. What were you, number 6 or 7? You were right up front.
Right up front.
And I didn't know that it's normal to ask a judge if they want to sit on the jury or not. And so I let it play out, and she ended up on my jury. And so as a brand new judge, every time they'd make an objection, I'd say sustained, I'd look. Oh.
Okay, as everybody's been talking, I've been checking off mentally. Well, I don't want to repeat. I agree with everything. But something a little bit different, what I would say is, yes, remember we are all members of the community and always take the risk, but sometimes to do that, you need a good support network. And so surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, particularly when there are definitely going to be days where you don't believe in yourself and where you think, wow, I've totally gotten in over my head. Those days when you have imposter syndrome, having those people around you that remind you, yes, you can do this. And then also being that for other people. I remember even as a young lawyer, when there were situations I didn't know what to do, you know, I'd kind of even just look around the courtroom or email people who I said, you know, I saw you in the courtroom and I thought you were great. Would you mind having coffee? And they're always happy to help give you advice and guide you. So just remember that we are all part of the community, and that all goes, you know, both ways. We are helping others, and sometimes you need them to help you. And I'm very jealous you got to be on a jury. I was called for a criminal case, and I was like number 13, and they shuffled, and I ended up like 1 or 2, maybe, something. But in the beginning, you know, I thought, you're on the appellate court. Nobody really knows the appellate court judges. They said, you know, does anybody in this room recognize anybody? And I did, so I raised my hand. They're all like, Justice Borleo, we know. But every time they asked a question, they'd all look at me. I did get struck, so I didn't get to sit, but it was a pretty cool experience to experience the voir dire from that side.
I did.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience? We'll take one question, and we have to go to our closing speaker. You have a question? Oh, from our audience at home, or wherever they are, work, home, wherever they may be.
So I do want to point out that we had over 130 participants in our Zoom audience, so this has been a very popular presentation. So the question is, since we are living in a time of political hostility, and it seems like every other week our justice system via our judges and attorneys are being attacked and sometimes literally threatened, how has that impacted you all and younger judges in your service to the community? What do you think can be done to change this environment?
Wow, I'd like to take that one. Dean? I have joined recently as a result of that very issue of the political turmoil and attacks on judges, a group called the Article 3 Coalition of a larger organization called Keep Our Republic. And the Article 3 Coalition is all of the retired Article 3 federal judges who have banded together in an effort to educate the community about the rule of law, the separation of powers, the independence of the judiciary, the branches of government, the necessity for people to stop making political and actual physical attacks on sitting judges based on decisions that they're making, that they make because they are trying to follow the rule of law. Last week was our first national town hall. It was in Savannah, Georgia for Constitution Day. I spoke on a panel there. Actually, I got to see an original copy of a draft of the Constitution that they only bring out every 3 years with actual little inner delineations and scratch outs and edits. And so don't say this by the people to the people, so say this, whatever. It was really interesting. But the whole purpose of that national town hall, which we streamed live, was to help people understand the importance of protecting our democracy, our democratic way of life, and the importance of trying to keep our republic. When Benjamin Franklin left the Constitutional Convention, a woman asked him, "What kind of government have you created for us?" He said, "A republic if you can keep it." And so the purpose of the Article 3 Coalition and Keep Our Republic is to help us keep our republic. And so those of us who have the ability to speak out now, because we are no longer shackled by the restrictions we had when we were still on the federal bench, are speaking out on behalf of our colleagues, some of whom have gotten personally attacked. Anonymous pizza delivery sent to their home in the name of Daniel Adderall, who's a name that doesn't mean anything to anybody but federal judges. That's the son of one of our colleagues in New Jersey who was killed at his mother's front door about 3 years ago. So I have a girlfriend who's on the DC Court of Appeal. She says, "Speak up for us." And so we are speaking up on behalf of judges, helping people understand that personal attacks on judges that are politicized are not warranted, necessary, helpful to the preservation of our democracy. And I think everybody has to step up and speak out from whatever platform or opportunity or place that you can do so.
Thank you, Judge Gilmore, for your continued service. Last thing, I'd like to recognize Anna Archer. The other thing we like to do is have more law clerks, and she was a career clerk for Judge Miller. And so I would also ask all the judges in the room and elsewhere and our students, think about being a law clerk, because that's a pathway to being a judge. And so could you just introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
Hi, I'm Anna Archer, class of 2006, and I have been working with Judge Miller since 2010, but I'm retiring from the court as of Tuesday, so.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
And podcast, and you have a podcast, yes. All right, so I think we're running a little bit around time. There's been a very engaging conversation, so thank you, especially to our judges. Let's give them a round of applause. We are so proud of you, absolutely proud of you and your service to our state, our nation, our community, but also, most importantly, they're such incredible role models and representatives for UH Law School and Central Brand. So that deserves another round of applause. Now the honor to introduce Daniela Landers, who's currently president of the Houston Bar Association. She's a historic president. It's a historic presidency We partnered with the Houston Bar Association forever, but especially this year with her. She's a graduate of UT Law School. We won't hold that against her. She has been very energetic in her role as president of the Houston Bar Association. She has been partnered with a number of firms in town, and we really appreciate the partnership with the Houston Bar Association. She's going to give a reflection on what she's just heard and how the way the Houston Bar Association can help us have more judges, more law clerks, of course from every school, but particularly UH Law Center. So welcome, Daniela Landers.
So I'm Daniela Landers. I'm president of the Houston Bar Association. I am the first African-American president of the Houston Bar Association first female in 155 years. And I'm really honored to be here with you today. First, I want to thank Dean Baynes for the kind invitation to be a part of today's outstanding event. Special thanks to, of course, Christina Van Arsdale and the other staff members that organized this very informative program, and for putting together a very diverse panel that's not just, that's really diverse in so many ways. And I think that's really reflective of the law school itself. I really also want to extend my deep appreciation to this exceptional panel of judges, both past and present, who shared their journeys to the bench with such candor and insight. Your stories are powerful reminders of the impact that representation, resilience, and leadership have on our profession and our justice system. As one of the most diverse cities in the country, it's vital for Houston and Texas to have a judiciary that reflects the people it serves, vibrant, inclusive, and representative at every level of government. Representation on the bench not only inspires those in our legal profession who aspire to serve, like many of us, but it also strengthens public trust in our justice system. So each judge has brought some unique perspectives, backgrounds, and lived experiences that shape how the law is interpreted and applied. And the individuals who serve on the bench today shape justice in our communities tomorrow. So to our panelists again, your leadership, your tenacity, and your continued service both on and off the bench remind us that progress is possible when doors are opened, voices are heard, and representation is real. Through your steadfast commitment and courage, you've paved the way for generations of legal minds to follow in your footsteps. So on behalf of the Houston Bar Association, thank you for your service, your example, and your enduring impact on our legal community. I had actually prepared some other words, but I got so much out of your stories that I want to tell you what I think I received from sort of lessons. Of course, I wrote down the lessons that you provided, but I wrote down what I thought were some key lessons that I thought were common in all of their stories. One, public service is very important. We heard stories from Judge Gilmore about working initially with the Department of Commerce, with Judge Kovac talking about working on boards of nonprofits and the work that they did. And it seemed like all the judges were active in the community even before they became public servants on the bench. And we are thankful for that. They're continuing that in their lives, even out of the courtroom. Lesson number two, timing is everything. Judge Kovac was the first Democrat that won a seat on the bench in 30 years, is what I heard, and was the first openly gay judge in the Harris County Court at Law. We also heard from Justice Borliak. She only 6 years ago became the first Asian American woman for the Court of Appeals. I mean, it's interesting to think that some of these changes were only just a few years ago. We also heard about Justice Kai's discussion of how she was one of the few women even pursuing a law degree before she got on the bench. And how, even though she doesn't want to be considered a trailblazer, you are a trailblazer and a pioneer to us. We also heard a lot about their challenges, not just the challenges that we're talking about today, but challenges that occurred before they got on the bench and while they were on the bench. Those challenges appeared to be both personal and professional. Of course, we had, we appreciate your honesty, Judge Kovac, to talk about the personal challenges you had, whether to even pursue getting on the bench because you were discouraged in some ways from your family from even pursuing it. And then, of course, we talked a lot. There was a lot of discussion about professional challenges because many of them were the first. I've heard Judge Gilmore speak before, so I also know that, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, that you were the first, you were the youngest African-American female appointed to the federal bench in Texas at the time. There we go. So, yes.
Of any background.
At any background. So,
and the cutest.
So there were challenges. Of course, there were professional challenges like, parking tickets. Or,
How about that?
we also heard not only from our panelists, but others in the audience, some of the judges in the audience, about some of the real personal and professional challenges that exist today. And thankfully, there are groups of judges and other advocates like the Article 3 Coalition who are trying to at least address some of these challenges as well. The other lesson that I think was pretty common amongst all is the importance of support systems. All the judges lauded the support that they received here at the University of Houston Law Center, but they also talked about the support that they received, sometimes surprisingly, in the public. Justice Gonzalez, for instance, talked about the fact that he received support from both parties. So when you think about historically, him being the very first Hispanic judge to the Texas Supreme Court, the first Hispanic to win a state office, and also probably the first to be supported by two different parties at the time. I mean, that was just when you think about historically all the things that were going on, there were some challenges, but he was able to get the support in places he probably didn't expect to get that support from. The other lesson that I think we heard, especially in their own lessons to us, is to think outside the box and to continue to strive hard. Judge Vasquez stated that when he came to UH Law Center, he advocated that Hispanic lawyers think outside the box, think about other practices. It's definitely something that we may need to do in our own practice and to be willing to take those risks, which was something else that many of the judges, the panelists said today. All of the judges talked about the importance of continuing to strive and to learn more. And if you have read their bios, they are still striving and still, badasses in their own right, whether they're still on the bench or not. They are still making a difference in our justice system and in the legal community overall. So those were the big lessons that I learned today. But I also want to talk a little bit about why I think having a panel that's just as diverse as this one is, and why it's important to the court systems overall. You know, there's several reasons, I think. I mean, when I looked at this, it's, you know, diversity in the courts isn't, it's a symbolic gesture. It's not important just to be symbolic. It's not important just to have the numbers. It's structural imperative for a justice system that aspires to be fair, legitimate, and deeply informed. There's several reasons why I think it matters, but one is because I think it fosters legitimacy and public trust. Representation, like the judges we have here, builds confidence in our legal system. When we see judges who reflect their communities and their ideals, it affirms that the system is for everyone and not just a privileged few. When courts are more representative, there is the perception of fairness. And studies show that people are more likely to view courts as legitimate when they see themselves reflected on the bench. Second, I think this diversity is necessary because it results in richer legal reasoning and analysis. The varied life experiences that we heard today lead to more nuanced deliberations. Judges from different political, racial, gender, socioeconomic, sexual, professional backgrounds bring perspectives that challenge assumptions and broaden the scope of legal representation and interpretation. In fact, in February 2022, the Brennan Center published an article entitled, "What Research Shows About the Importance of Supreme Court Diversity." And the article quoted several federal judges and got their ideas or their opinion about why diversity on the bench is important. For instance, Judge Harry Edwards on the DC Court of Appeals observed that diversity on the bench provides for constant input from judges who have seen different kinds of problems in their pre-judicial careers and have sometimes seen the same problems from different angles. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor reportedly said that she learned to see the world differently through Justice Thurgood Marshall's stories, proof that diversity enriches even the highest levels of judicial thought. Another reason for diversity on the court is because it supports institutional integrity. So a judiciary that mirrors the nation's diversity signals that it's not reserved for the select few, but it also strengthens the ideal of equal protection under the law. And then finally, I think it's important, and it was talked about again today, not only because of professional legitimacy, but also because of pipelines. In March of 2021, Rutgers professor Stacey Hawkins testified before the House Committee on the Judiciary on these issues. And she noted that judicial diversity reinforces our constitutional commitment to equality and representative democracy because it preserves the promise of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But most importantly, I think it also helps to build pipelines of new judges because these judges inspire us to do more and to want to be like them. And it validates our aspirations and affirms that legal authority is not just reserved for a narrow demographic. So one of my favorite biblical quotes is, "To whom much is given, much is required." Of course, a saying rooted in Luke 12:48, which signifies sort of a greater responsibility for those who are blessed with abundance to do more. And lawyers and judges are not just private practitioners, we are public stewards, and we have to carry the weight beyond the courtroom. So as we celebrate the law school's pioneer days, we are reminded that legal and judicial pioneers, by definition, are those who venture into new territory, literally or figuratively, and help blaze the trail for others behind them. And this panel of judges and justices have definitely done that and continue to do that. So for every lawyer or judge who mentors a law clerk or an associate who teaches a class, as Justice Case continues to do, or advocates for others, it is in effect shaping the next generation of lawyers. So as president of the Houston Bar Association, I have the privilege of witnessing firsthand that many of our members and how our organization does this to work to uphold the rule of law and to promote professionalism through mentorship and access to justice. The HBA's mission, in fact, is to serve the needs of Houston area lawyers, to enhance the legal profession through promoting professionalism, access to justice, the rule of law, equality, and inclusion. There it is. And legal education for both the profession and the public. And my presidential initiatives this year further the HBA's mission by promoting professionalism and the rule of law, creating membership opportunities that are most reflective of our needs and lawyers in the greater Houston community, increasing service to the community, and fostering collaboration with business and community partners. So moving forward, I want to encourage all of you to consider making sure that you continue to get involved. The HBA initiatives and programs are not just about service and professionalism, they're really about impact. They're about ensuring that every person in our community has access to legal resources, representation, and justice, about building a legal profession that is ethical, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of our city. So the new bar year officially began in June, only about 4 months ago, but I'm proud to say that we're off to a great start. And so as we look ahead, I invite each of you to consider how you can be a part of this work, whether it's continuing to get involved in mentoring, volunteering at a legal clinic, joining a committee, networking at an HBA event, or simply showing up for your colleagues. Your engagement matters, your voice matters, your leadership matters. And together we can continue to build a legal community that reflects the best of Houston, diverse, dynamic, and deeply committed to justice. So on behalf of the Houston Bar Association, I look forward to continuing this important work with all of you. I thank again our panelists, I thank again our host, and each of you for being a part of today's program. Enjoy the balance of your evening. Thanks.
Thank you, President Landers. That was great. And now, for our audience at home and also for audience here, we're going to do first a video unveiling of the Judicial Heritage Wall. So take a look. Ribbon cutting. And all our judges, well, all that have submitted photos. So any judge at home or in the audience that has not submitted a photo, please do so.